what is the basic difference between a civil engineer, your interior designers, and an architect? And where does one's work stop?
There is no physical, say, boundary of the three of them. I think actually when you look at a project, there are four people, four stakeholders. So I think the first one would be the client, the biggest stakeholder, because he has the idea what he wants. I think then comes in your contractor and your architect, who have one has a capacity to vision what the client wants, the other has the capacity to execute what the client wants. So they go hand in hand with each other. As long as things are okay between the three of them, it's all good. The minute things go bad, there's always fights and all of that. I think that's part of the process. Yeah, I think interior designer is something that I have my own reservations about it. So if an architect is able to design a house well, because you build it from scratch, you build a house from zero. If you are able to cater to your clients with all their needs and their wants to the dot, maybe even 80% of what they want, I don't see a requirement of what an interior designer would be, except that it's an aesthetic input that they have. So if, for example, like if I am telling you saying, you're the client who's come to me, you have a requirement for wardrobes, you have a requirement for how the bathroom would be. Now, when an interior designer comes, the job of an interior designer is to envision what the space inside the room would be. But when an architect has already done that to a large extent, her input would possibly be change of a few materials, maybe internal details of what the wardrobe would be, and limited to these things. Now, the amount of changes between this is quite low. So if an architect, I always believe if an architect is able to do a good job, you will barely require an interior designer to come into the process. You should be able to do 95% of your job. And yes, there will be, so you will always have some execution people who come in, like the contractor might just do civil, and then you might have an interior contractor also to execute your ideas. Now, if that is the case, that's fine. But if you're saying, I'm going to do as an architect, I'm going to finish my job, and then we hand it over to an interior person, who obviously will have their own ideas and their own thought process and the whole way they work. But if they're going to rethink everything that the architect has done, then what's the point of paying the architect the money that you are?
It's redundant.
I think it should go hand in hand. I think an interior designer should be redundant in her residential scope. But I think as a commercial, I think they are very important because you're looking at hospitality especially, which is highly dependent on the ambience of this place. You talk about bars or a hotel. Interior design is where you would go. I mean, architecture would make a difference, but I think ambience created is important for that space. So that's a lot of interior design. So with residential especially, I think you should be able to kind of hand over to the client 80%, 90% of what they're looking at.
So we're saying architects basically deal with all sorts of building, right? It's not just, I mean, what comes to my head is basically a bungalow or someone of that sort.
Yeah.
But there's a total different segment called commercial, in phases, restaurants, co-living, all those things. So which is your, I mean, at least for design workshop, this is your bread and butter, or like, you have to put a pie chart on it.
Actually, that's so funny because I think over the last 7 years that we've been there, we've moved from, we always had a year and a half or about a year. It's a cycle that we followed. I don't know how, coincidentally. So we've done residential, and then we've done only commercial, and then we've done only F&B, and then we've done only residential, we've done only interiors. So at this point, we're at the only residential phase. So, but there is, like you said, there is literally every building that is built generally has an architect. We've done designs for single bathrooms, believe it or not. We've also designed one of the biggest museums in Bangalore. So I think it's called Curiosity Science Center. It's off Sajapur Main Road. It's about 4 acres and about close to an acre of built-up space. Very different thought process of how it's done. So we've written all sorts of work. As long as it's either exciting or it makes financial sense because we're a business, we're happy to pick up anything.
So how do you get these clients in the first place? I mean, is it more of a full strategy where, you're just, you've done some work and word of mouth, you're waiting for that to transpire? Or is it like you go and approach them, you take an aggressive approach and talk to new people who are
I think with architecture is the same as working with doctors or lawyers. I think you will always, irrespective of how popular you become, it's always has to be a word of mouth. Like if I have to go in for a heart surgery, I will ask four different people who've been through that process and ask them who's a good surgeon, and I will make that call. It's not going to be top five architects in Bangalore, and I just pick one of them. I think for us, we've been very, very lucky. We are horrible at our marketing, which we should definitely improve. But we've been very lucky to actually get projects initially from friends and family that transpired to work we've done before and our previous clients. Even till today, it is always previous clients, people who have worked with us before. Even our old contractors have recommended us to lots of prospective clients. So I think we're very lucky in that case. But I think you have to do some sort of marketing, not in a way that it will bring you clients, but in a way that showcases the sort of work that you do.
Okay. So that's interesting because if at all a cafe, just to take a case which would be easily understandable, which is Cafe Max.
Yeah.
So just a bit on how you got them as a client, as well as do they work? If you recollect how you got them as a client, as well as do these clients look at timelines as a criteria for giving work, or if the word of mouth is there and they know that the belief is there, then they're okay to just pick to one person. Why I'm asking this is because some of the real estate go with the auction or bidding process and all happens where your competitors might say that I can do the same project in 5 months or something less than.
Yeah. I think there's always going to be competition with any work that you do. I think there will always be someone who'll do it faster. There'll always be someone who'll do it cheaper. I think you've got to value the amount of work that you do. We follow a very thorough process of how we start a project and how we hand over. It requires a lot of time, a lot of effort from us, our whole team, and there's a rate that we charge for that. Now, similarly, like you said, how do we get our client for even Cafe Max is again word of mouth. So most of our clients come through word of mouth. They have a conversation with us. We have that first conversation always on site. So we're able to understand what is the potential of the project. We give them our initial thoughts, saying this is what we plan, this is what we can do. If it's in lines of things, then this is what we charge. And then you can come back to us if all three of them are matching. If they do come back, then we always ask them for a set of pictures that tells us saying this is the interior or this the ambience that they're looking at, the space that they're looking at. Once we get them, we're very adamant on what is it that you have picked out in this picture. So if it's a picture of a bedroom, which is, very rich in materials and highly glossy, so we want to understand why they picked that out. Like it can just be a nice picture. They might have just liked the bed in that picture, but they send me the whole picture. So this is coming back to how we learn the lifestyle of our clients. These are the kind of small questions that we ask. So if it's a bed or the headboard style of a bed or the storage under the bed that they liked, but they send us the whole picture, our interpretation of that reference image for my case would be completely different because my perspective as an architect is very different than what my clients would be. So I think that is something that we go back and forth on. I think that's important.
We're going to come to this one point of time in the conversation.
Tell me.
Why is there, we don't see those Roman architectures or those kind of architectures from how it was before.
Mm.
I mean, I know we have a different category of marvels these days.
Yeah.
Let's say Burj Khalifa. However, I mean, we have a different tone of it.
Right.
But is it possible to build a pyramid of Giza in today's R&D?
I think nobody knows how the pyramid of Giza was originally built. So I think that's not going to happen. But if you talk about any Roman building or the Greek buildings, I think, yeah, definitely. But I think you have to understand that we've moved as humanity. We have moved away from what was available before. The idea of a house was to shelter. Then it became, let it be a little more good looking and make more sense of how we live. And then you had what materials do you use to make that? So predominantly it was stone, especially with the Greek and the Roman. It was stone that was used. But today with technology progressing, you have even 20 mm boards which are as strong and perform as well as stone. So we have moved away from very labor intensive, very long process of construction to I will finish a tower in 3 years, which is possibly the biggest ever built. So I think it goes hand in hand. Very funnily, I think everyone who knows the reason, so very interesting. If you look at how builders build apartments today, it is the cheapest form of construction you can find. Always
Like in the whole
things. Yeah, I mean, if you look at any builder, not just in Bangalore, I'm saying the whole world, the cheapest form of construction is what developers and builders use. So in Bangalore, we're seeing small balconies with concrete walls or building brick walls that are being built, and that's the cheapest form. Whereas the cheapest form before was probably I will build it with stone or mud thatch before. So it is a very interesting way of thought process of if I can do a glass facade for a building and get away with it, and that's the cheapest form for me to do it, and that is what I will do.
considering all the safety.
Yeah. I mean, you're not going away from the discipline, but I'm just saying the fastest, cheapest form, is always what developers do, because obviously they have to make money, and every square footage matters. If you kind of all sorts of materials you use kind of matters for their numbers.
Because I mean, when I was a kid, all of us were kids. I used to see a lot of red bricks and everything.
Yeah.
We don't see it. It's more. It used to become hollow bricks.
Yes.
Now, like you said, there's more of glass profiles and commercial spaces.
It is the faster way to construct. It is the cheaper way to construct in cases. So we are moving. So technology. So if you want to have a Roman style, Greek style, or even a vernacular Indian style building, it will be more expensive to have that being constructed today in your house than doing a regular so-called modern architecture building. So a lot of people actually, if there is a certain cost implications to having a Kerala style or a Bali themed house, which would cost more because there's a lot of labor involved in doing such things, as opposed to I'm having a glass structure everywhere with a certain fenestration.
It opens up my mind when we talk about this, because each and every culture itself had different architectures. For example, Japanese itself had a different wooden lines and those kind of things. So do you, in today's day, do read this or do you research on it and try to get inspired from those kind of buildings? If yes, then which do you get awestruck by? I mean, something which like that, and you talk about Greek and
I think, like I said, everything is basically a resultant of what's the environment around them. The buildings that you find in, say, Dubai or Middle East is very different than what you would have found in Sri Lanka or what you would have found in Japan.
Okay.
The basic reason is that the environment around them. I think Japanese had a lot of wood around them, so everything is built out of wood. They didn't have access to metal at the initial, because they started their very detailed form of shelter long before a lot of us did. So they have construction without any sort of metal, no nails, nothing. So they built whole houses with just tongue and groove joints, any form of joints. So me being awestruck with all of them is a fair thing to say, because I think it is ridiculous that we haven't considered that every region, even 500 kilometers apart from each other, has their own style. I think if you look at what Palace Mysore has versus, say, the Gulbarga Gold Compass is miles apart from each other. I think it's very interesting to just think about the level of craftsmanship that they had to actually achieve what they did.
Take us through some of the differences. I mean, you spoke about Dubai versus Sri Lankan buildings, and even now, or the Mysore Palace and Gulbarga.
Yeah. So I think Sri Lanka, or the tropical climate, which is basically Kerala, Sri Lanka, Bali, they're very in lines with each other. You have a lot of, because we live in tropical forests, you have a lot of access to wood. There is a lot of rain, which means that it has to have sloped roof. Wood is if you use it properly, it's a good conductor of environment. It gives you, it's not a good conductor, sorry, it's the opposite of being a good conductor of an environment. So it gives you the warmth of being in space. It it is very different to the climate that you have in the Middle East, which is a very harsh and dry climate. So you can't really have open verandas and breeze through your entire properties, just like how you would have in, let's say, Kerala. It's all open verandas everywhere, colonnaded outside the property, so you can sit around in your verandas. Dubai would be, and everything would be closed. You will have a small hole in the center, which will probably be your hot air outlet.
Mhm.
And then you'll have small peepholes everywhere that becomes your inlet for cooler air. So it's very different forms of design that you have in both in any space. I think even Europe is designed towards having a colder climate. So you would have smaller stone-based walls with accommodation for having fire inside the place. I think that's something very interesting to look to.
That's an insight bonus because to get to know why these buildings are built in a way,
Yeah,
it's something which we don't think about. We just look at it and this is how Japan is.
yeah.
It gets us back to the country's relevance.